Hi there, welcome back to the Q Show. Today I am your host, David Tran, and we are going to be talking about the theme of the chaotic and inefficient state of the supply chain. Today I'm joined by Rick Burnett. He's the founder and CEO of LaneAxis. His extensive knowledge of mobile technology, software development, and deep experience in and the love for trucking and logistics inspired him to create LaneAxis. He's a former partner in a trucking company, and he spent over a decade researching and developing a mobile-based platform that'll provide real-time tracking and data analytics over freight movements. And his work has culminated in a shipper-to-carrier direct optimization platform that was granted a full U.S. patent in March of 2018. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, hi, David. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the time.
So for all the people who aren't aware, can you give a little more of a breakdown of LaneAxis and what you're trying to achieve through the company?
Yeah, so LaneAxis is the industry first brokerless direct freight network. So I always kind of compare it to people don't really realize, and they realize now because of the pandemic, the impact of what products being delivered actually mean to them when the shelves are empty. And so from a transportation movement, we're talking about 92% of all products are delivered on a truck.
Okay.
And so how is it done? And so of that, there's 1.8 plus million trucking companies in the U.S. and 1.4 million of those have 5 trucks or less, and there's 930,000 owner operators. So when you look at the network is comprised of smaller independent companies, and they're the ones that's actually hauling and moving the freight. So what we're talking about and what LaneAxis is addressing is the connection between the shipper, the person that needs to move product and or manufacturer, and the person that's actually hauling it. And that is a shipper, a carrier and an individual driver itself. And they're comprised of, let's just call it 1 million smaller independent companies. So what we've done is we've built a network that allows contractually for them to come directly to the network. We've built the data attributes itself. So a shipper can query the network and say, show me, the number of carriers in, a 30-mile radius of LAX, and there's 42,745 owner operators, and there's 78,000 that have 5 trucks or less. And there's an ability for them to send an invitation to connect directly to them carriers. So from a contractual standpoint, now they can marry and come together through the network. And then a shipper uploads his loads into the system. He can deal directly with that carrier, negotiate through the network with a bidding process or an auto tendering feature where he can just tender the load to the carrier, hits accept. We pull payment from the shipper. We hold it in escrow. The load's then tendered to the carrier. And then we have a mobile app called Freight Vision that tracks the load in real time. The shipper and or carrier have an ability to communicate directly with the driver. Hey, make sure you strap down the load or capture temperature of the load, various different things that happen in daily movements of transportation. And then all the aspects of this are captured in the data set. So we're actually building real data in transportation. So we know when he arrived, we know when he's unloaded, we know when he delivered, we have a signed proof of delivery, and then all of those communications are part of the digitalization of the transportation movement stored on the blockchain. So we blockchain the components, and then access token, we have a tokenized platform, a utility token that validates all the data points. So we're able to start scoring the performance of the driver. We know he's on time 98.6% of the time. This guy's on time 72% of the time. That's important. We also know loading and unloading times. This location loads in 3.5 hours. This location loads in 45 minutes. So all of this data that today is being manually inputted through ADI or various different systems or none at all, is somebody inputting it. We're actually capturing it from the truck itself. It's a device driven. And then we have AI bot components within that are adding additional value of, like, for an example, capturing, the available space on that truck. So we know he's coming out of Chicago, heading to Atlanta. He's 60% full. He has 40% available space. So we can start alerting the network. So LaneAxis is really about the transportation network itself and building direct connections and then building the digital asset, which is the data itself.
So why do you think the industry is so fragmented as it is now with a lot of these owner operators as well as small operators that have few trucks?
Well, there's several reasons why. Number one, trucking company margins, profits are narrow. It's 5-7% profit margin. So 95 to 90, 3% of or 97% of that is gone in cost, right? So there's 5 to 7 cents in profit margin. So it's you're taking on a big risk by buying a 60, 70, 100,000 rig plus a trailer, and for smaller profit margins. So that's why a lot of companies don't buy 100,000 fleets, right? Mm-hmm. There is no 100,000 fleets. They don't exist, right? Large trucking companies might have 10 or 12,000. Walmart's got 8,000 trucks, power units themselves, but they move 45,000 loads a day. So the market is just comprised of people that want to work, and they're good guys and they're hard workers, and they buy a truck and they move freight. And then now we're talking about how do they contractually deal with a shipper that moves freight. So for an example, Walmart that moves 40, 50,000 loads a day, right, in and out of their distribution centers, that these smaller independent guys are hauling the freight. They're just not contractually dealing directly with Walmart because Walmart can't manage 5, 6, 700,000 relationships with smaller independent guys. Well, now they can, because from a LaneAxis standpoint, they can contractually be on. They can make sure they have insurance. They're negotiating directly with them. They have real-time visibility. They have exception management. They can pay them direct, and it's all stored on the blockchain, and they can start to get real data performance. So the network is actually going to move. So you say, well, why hasn't it been done yet? Well, and that's because
that was my next question.
And it's a great question, and it's one that everybody asks. And they're like, well, why are you guys the industry first, and why are you guys the only one, and how do you guys compare to an Uber Freight or Convoy or all these other guys that's doing? They're saying they're shipper direct, and we're not a margin-driven broker model. We're a direct network, so we don't. The shipper and the carrier negotiate directly, and they know what each other's paying. That doesn't happen in this world today. The only person that knows it is a third-party entity that is negotiating on the behalf of the shipper, and he knows what the carrier's getting, but the shipper doesn't know what the carrier's getting. The carrier doesn't know what the shipper's paying, right? And so the reason why it hasn't been done is because you have 1.8 million companies, trucking companies, right? That's hauling the freight. So if 97% of this industry is smaller independent, then 97% of this industry is moving the freight. It's just math. So now we're talking about how are they doing it? And so in the past, just 3 or 4 short years ago, less than 10% of this industry had a smartphone. Now all of them have it. Well, you have a device in the cab, right? That didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. Secondly, they were still using paper logs 3 or 4 years ago. 90% of this industry, right? Because that's who's hauling it. And they didn't want ELDs. Well, now you have electronic logging devices in a cab that's federally mandated that as the end of December 2019, everybody had to have ELDs. Mm-hmm. So now you have so we can actually, from network perspective, communicate directly with the truck. So there is an ability that is now in front of us that there will be a direct network. And from a homeland security and different things like that, the government's going to have a single entity of a network of the trucking companies, and pointed to a network where if there is a pandemic in the future, they could, communicate and dispatch trucks wherever they're at in order to move supply of emergencies for different things that happen from a country standpoint. So that's what happened when 9/11 happened and the towers hit and they were grounded the planes in 2 hours. They were able to do that because they had a communication capability of a single network that says American, United, Spirit, all the rest of you, get on the ground, right? And so if you had that in transportation, which you now have a capability of doing because you have ELDs, you have a logging device and a communication that you can communicate with that truck, you can build a single network. And so from a business standpoint, that's what we're doing. We're building a single network that's going to make the network efficient because, there's 1 million trucks that move empty every day. Well, why is that? Well, because there's no network visibility. If you go to DAT and you Google DAT and you say, well, how many loads are on an average are posted on DAT? And that's a load board. And that's 875,000 loads a day. 875,000 loads a day. Well, that's brokers or shippers, or they're looking for capacity. They're looking for movements, right? So from a network efficiency model, it's very inefficient. It's labor intensive, phone calls, paperwork. And that's a lot of people don't realize it because when they order something from Amazon or something online, they get a tracking link and they think everything's tracked. And that's a normal assumption. But when you drill into the industry and you start to look at the supply chain, and then you start to peel back the onion and go, okay, well, how does this actually move? Right. And then you have a network that is 1.8 million trucking companies. Then it starts to go, okay, well, I can understand that. And then, well, how do we fix it? And that's what we're doing.
So how do you find these companies, these trucking companies in the first place to add them to the network?
Well, first off, I mean, they're all public DOT, right? So it's a public database that we have them all in our network and we have a way that we built to communicate with them, right? So, getting this is what they want. I mean, trucking companies, smaller independent guys, they want to deal directly with who's hauling their freight, who they're hauling the freight for, right? Because they're getting paid from them, they're communicating with them. And so it's not a hard sell to go to smaller independent guys and go, hey, would you like to have freight directly from shippers? Even if you make the same amount of money? Yeah. But in addition, you're going to make more money because we're carving out the middle. Oh, yeah. So it's not a hard sell. So you go, well, why don't we have millions of loads moving through there? Well, we will eventually, right? Because it's sales and marketing at this point. I mean, once people realize that they can go direct and there's that much efficiency and savings, then, the model's just going to stay. And this model's been done in every industry. This isn't new, right? I mean, we're not the creator of a direct model, right? I mean, we're just applying, movements that's happened in other industries, buying, airline tickets to buying movies to, purchasing your stocks to everything else, right? It's just we've figured out how to build the network and build a system to give them the capability to go direct. So it's the technology that's behind it.
So you're using technology to go through all these public records to compile a database of shippers and where they are located. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So how do you monetize all of this if you're making it available to people who are looking to ship? Is it like a membership model? Is it
it's just a transactional model. So it's like you buy something online and you put your credit card in and they charge a fee for doing it, right? So we charge 1% to the shipper up front whenever. So if it's $1,000, we charge him $10. And then he's charged $5 for his load tracking. So he's going to pay $15 to move his load when today he's paying 20, 30, 40%. He doesn't really know, to a broker. Okay. And then we deduct 1% from the carrier. So on the $1,000 he gets $990 because he's deducted the fee, of the $10 the 1% processing fee. So that's our model.
So why do you feel like there's so many brokers instead of those individual operators marketing themselves to find their own pairings in the marketplace?
Well, they're needed and they were great and they were a necessity. You had to have them. And it started, 15, 20 years ago when a lot of companies, deregulation happened and a lot of companies wanted to remove legacy cost. You had 300 people working in your transportation that was responsible for moving your 4,000 or 5,000 loads a day. Or, if you're moving 300 a day, you have 50, 60 people or whatever, and you're going to retire and you're going to pay this guy 30 years in retirement. Or you lay them off and you outsource the transportation to somebody that's going to handle all this, right? And that was the birth of 3PLs, where they come in and they basically just take over the transportation for companies and they save money. And it was good because there was an ability to build a direct network and they had the relationship and they managed all the process, right? So like everything else, it's just evolution. The evolution of, and the reason why there wasn't a network 5 years ago, because I know because I've been at this long, right? I mean, we're a 7+ year old company, software company. I started filing patents in 2014, so there was just an inability to build it because technology wasn't there in order to build. It's like a cell phone, right? If you don't have towers to connect, you can't build coverage, right? You have to build the towers. You have to build the infrastructure. Well, the infrastructure is in place now. And so there is an ability to build a direct network. And so the reason that an owner operator doesn't go directly to Walmart is because Walmart goes, I can't deal with you directly because I can't manage 100,000 relationships with smaller independent guys. I can't do it. It's too labor intensive to make sure they're under contract, make sure they have proper insurance, and then if they break down or manage weather or all the other things, and they got 110 distribution centers, and that load's picked up by who, what? I mean, it's complicated, right? And so all that is we've built a system that really strips off a lot of the inefficiencies and gets to the core. So what is the core? Well, what's transportation? It's moving product from point A to point B. You have a shipper that has product that needs to be moved, and you have a carrier that's going to move it. And the reason why I say a carrier is because the driver that actually goes and picks up that load could be an owner-operator. Mm-hmm. He's driving his own truck, but he has an operating authority that he's a carrier first. And then his CDL's tagged to his operating authority. So it's a shipper and a carrier. It's not a driver. It's not an Uber model. It never mm-hmm. can be, because there is a carrier that they work for. All person that's a truck driver works for a trucking company that has a DOT number, and that's a carrier.
Can you walk me through the journey of your career that led you to come with this idea, and then how you decided to finally get started to bring it to life?
Yeah, I mean, it's been over a decade that I've solved. I've been in the trenches, and I know the inefficiencies, and we've lived it as a trucking company. And we ran, a number of years peak season. So we ran trucks for UPS to help their peak season. So that's a week before Christmas or before Thanksgiving up till Christmas, when, the volume of shipments spike and the capacity shrinks and everybody needs trucks and they need to move their stuff. So they contract that in advance, that's a colossal failure of pain to go through that, because they're calling all the time. You got to give your LMA number, you got to give your trailer number, and it's just they know that. I mean, I'm not telling anything about them, it's the business, but I'm like, we need to build technology to make this more efficient, because this is crazy. And I literally spent 20 hours in a 24-hour period for 2 weeks straight in a conference room doing this stuff. So it was birthed from the industry itself to fix it. And then now, as time has progressed, everything is a progression of learning. It's like, in any sport, how do they figure out the West Coast offense, and how they figure out the spread, and how they figure it's by games, right? And fixing things that you're not succeeding. You're running the ball and you're getting 1 yard, you're punting every down, you got to change something, right? And then they go, well, let's try throwing. And, and that's the way the system has evolved, because, we've gone through this and there wasn't technology. Like, okay, well, let's build the network, right? Let's build the attributes of the network. It's public, and let's build it and make it queryable so it's easy for these guys to find. And so as they start to come in, they can expand their carry base. Shippers will start to utilize, efficiency of the network that's going empty, that through immediate connectivity of a smart contract that they can connect immediately, and they can start becoming efficient. And so, as the network grows and swells, it's going to be, a really efficient machine in the next 3 to 5 years,
So once you started with the directory of all these carriers, how'd you find your first shippers to match them to?
Well, I mean, it's a needle in the haystack, to be honest with you, at the beginning, but we're not starting transportation. We're making it more efficient. So the business is already being done without LaneAxis, and will continue being done without LaneAxis. They could just do it more efficient and less pain if they use the system, and that's what we're doing. So they bring their current relationships in. If it's a shipper, they'll and then what do they get? Even if the money's the same, they got a single network. They can expand their carrier base in case one of that carrier has a truck broke down or whatever else. They got a network that they can immediately connect to. They got real data. They got electronic process. So there's so much value, irregardless of anybody that we're talking to, that there's no reason why they shouldn't come to the network, because they're going to benefit by, joining the network in all aspects. From a cost savings, from a data aspect, and efficiency, everything.
Or to clarify, are the first paying customers people you knew from prior connections, or how'd you break into the industry?
Yeah, I mean, we've been at this for a long time. We have very good shareholders. I mean, we got a lot of contacts. There's a lot of guys, probably the first core, know, 50 plus shareholders that were in LaneAxis were in the industry in some form or fashion. And quite frankly, I have some large shippers that I have relationships with that I haven't even gone and talked to yet and showed them the system yet, because it's, you know, I don't want to cry wolf, and, you know, and in this, you know, it's an evolution to make sure that everything's perfect. You know, you can't go, you know, everybody wants to get the Super Bowl, but you got to make sure you play enough, you know, preseason games and season and playoffs so that when you get there, you're ready, right? Because you're on a platform national with 100 million people watching, and you want to make sure you do everything right. You don't want, and it's an analogy in this is, you know, we're starting with, you know, smaller mid-sized shippers and relationships and things like that, and we're scaling and we're adding, you know, several shippers, you know, probably 40, 50 shippers every month. You know, we've got thousands of carriers in the network. We're moving stuff every day. We're tweaking, you know, the pilot that we're running on the blockchain, you know, so we're making improvements. We got, you know, some stuff coming next week that we're doing. I've got some, you know, I would say whales that I've talked to that are very interested. I'm not pushing them yet because we're not ready, I don't really think, for a couple things, you know, because you got to do integration and scale. You know, but, you know, that's going well. So I think when we'll start to really become, you know, ready for the playoffs, or when the first guy that fully integrates, it's a public company. And then 90 days after that, when he reports the amount he saved in his transportation, that's when it's going to change.
When did you want to start integrating crypto technologies into your platform?
Well, we already do it. I mean, access.
Well, at what point in your history did you decide it was something you wanted to pursue?
3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So we formed Access. You know, so Access Token was formed in November 2017. We tokenized the platform in 2018. We executed the smart contract on Etherscan in January 2019 and let the asset sit because it wasn't ready and the network wasn't ready. And so in the beginning of this year, January, we partnered with Pixelplex, which is a global, you know, blockchain firm. And they built all the blockchain components integrated into the legacy system. And that work continues. And, you know, so we're validating the points. Access Token is validating the points behind the scenes. It's doing its thing. You know, so it's scoring locations, it's scoring drivers, it's, you know, capturing all the data points. There's probably 45 or so major. And then as the data grows, you know, the demand for that data is going to grow because there's no data in transportation from a network perspective today. It doesn't exist. So just like there's no network. So, you know, there's a lot of proprietary systems, you know, and, you know, that's why when you look at LaneAxis, we're focused on the network itself. We're not building a proprietary system like a V-Chain's doing for BMW or whatever else that's a proprietary, you know, that's making their documentation on blockchain and blah, blah, blah. We're focused on the transportation movement and focused on eliminating, you know, cost and inefficiencies in the network and removing, you know, the need for third-party intermediaries and freight brokers, freight forwarders, third-party logistics, large trucking companies that do purchase transportation. So they buy the load for $1,000 and subcontract it out to you know, Billy Bob for $700, right? That's a brokered load, but it's reported as purchase transportation. So, you know, that's what we're focused on. That's why, you know, I know the industry, I know who's out there, I know what people are doing. And, you know, I don't spend a lot of time with it, to be honest with you, because I'm not really worried. Because we have the purest form of a solution of a transportation network. And what I mean by that is, you know, a shipper is the origin of the movement itself because they have product that needs to be moved. And the carrier is the origin of the person that's moving it. Okay, so that's the purest form. And then it's assigned to his driver. And so we're capturing all the data. So it's a direct network, direct data, you know, direct pay. So even if somebody's doing it, they're doing it equal. They're not doing it better. You know, because there's nothing else that we can cut out and then from a network perspective, we can start to maximize through AI bots and components of efficiency within the network, available capacity. And as the network grows, it's just going to become more and more efficient.
What made you want to pursue a like token-based solution versus a centralized like data warehouse or
Well,
server?
because there's no data. And so, I mean, I think it's not a far stretch that we could all probably see in the next 10 years, there probably won't be paper money. There's going to be digital assets are the future, right? So what is blockchain? Well, it's a decentralized. So it's making a Walmart, an Amazon, a FedEx, a UPS trust the network because it's a trustless network. Yes, this guy did pick it up. Yes, this guy did. His score is, it's like a credit score, right? I mean, what is a credit score? It's a risk assessment. So it tells a bank or an entity that, hey, your score is 800. You're going to pay probably, pretty good risk, right? This guy says this guy's on time 99.9% of the time. I'm pretty good to give him my low because I know it's probably going to get there, right? I mean, and that's what, but there's no data. So the reason why I looked at the tokenize and utilizing, the data, and then people that want access to the data, whether it's the government, insurance companies, fuel stations. I mean, there's a lot of efficiency by building a network that's a trustless network that's pulling this data that's real, that is real time. That, I mean, look at a trucking company, man. They get 6 miles a gallon. They get 100 gallons of fuel. Well, if you could get them 30, 40, 50% based on the amount that they have in their tank and based on where they're going and what it's going to take and efficiently make fuel purchases, how much savings is it to a guy that there's a million companies that's an owner operator that lives by margins? 30 cents a gallon, if you're buying 100 gallons, is significant. You're getting 6 miles a gallon, right? So those are things that what drove the token, because all of them are going to be token access. If you want real-time data from fuel, it's going to take tokens because it's just going to access the data network. So it's an API. So any parts of transportation, which is 92% of all products. So our mission is to build the network itself. If the network builds on a global scale, so I could see this in 5-7 years that, there's a direct network of a transportation movement that started in Beijing that went to the port that got picked up in Long Beach and delivered in Chicago. We have chain of custody all the way back. And it's the most efficient move of price, fuel, network, scoring, and that all is accessed through the token because it's the data.
And who's currently running the nodes that back the blockchain? Are you piggybacking on another blockchain?
Well, we're it's Ethereum layer 2.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, as it becomes more efficient, as you know, the London fork went off real good, and we thought about some other things. We thought about private blockchain. We thought about Binance chain, and we were originally deployed on Ethereum. But Ethereum's we're very, very confident. We're and obviously it's deployed with a lot of networks, and I think it's not a hard sell to see that Ethereum is the future of the network. I think it might be Web 3.0 to be honest with you. So we're very confident with that. We're very comfortable with that, and that'll just grow and scale as the network grows.
As of right now, how big is your team?
We have about 50 plus.
And how they split into like different departments?
Well, I don't count some shareholders and big people that have relationships that can get into different doors. So we have front end, back end, we have iOS, Android, we have API, we have integration, we have blockchain, we have design, and then we have our marketing, and we have our content, our writers, and then we have all back end services, because you everything you're doing is you're tracking, right? So that's just the mix.
Can you walk me through how the team grew over time? Like, what was the starting team, and like at what stage did you hire additional people, and how did you know you want to hire on new people at different stages?
I mean, I think we stay lean as long as we can. I still take the garbage out, and I get my own coffee, and I'm on calls, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and you do what you got to do because that's what you have to do. So we're nowhere near where we need to be, and we're going to maintain, a lean process until the system grows organically, and it will demand to fill a hole with somebody, right, in an area of expertise. So, if you don't have anybody on your team that can't get around the corner, if you don't have any speed, you better go get some speed. Well, the game dictates that, right? And because if you don't have linemen to allow somebody to show you that you need speed, you're never going to get outside, right? So same way with here. So we feel we need it. We added 2 guys just in the last month that 30 plus years of experience in systems and the network. We've added both of those, one on the shipper side and carrier side. They're actually coming in next week. We're going through the beta stuff that they found, and they found tweaks that we need to make changes and things like that that's going to make us scale quicker. Well, that was done from, we needed it, right? I mean, we built the Model T and every car's black and it's, it can run on the road, but it needs improvements, right? And you don't know that until you get on the road. Well, you need shocks. You should probably put air in there because it's 100 degrees in Arizona, and you probably ought to put a radio in there because people get bored. Just different things like that. And that's how you make them changes. But your evolution is changing because you don't want to be doing that too early because you'll burn all your money.
Right.
And you're going to be constantly raising money. And so our future is going to be dictated by the holes that we need to fill based on the demand that we need to fill it, and so, we'll do that as needed, but we're going to stay lean because we want to control our own destiny,
On top of staying lean, as a company leader, what culture are you trying to foster to make your company sustain the longest duration of time and to, I guess, achieve the most that you can?
I just want I want to work so they see that I'm always on every call and I'm in here and I'm out, and as long as I can do it, as long as I'm at this, that's the most important, because I have guys that, that have been here for a long time already. And that's because they know I'm in the grind with them. I'm not asking them to do something. I don't golf because I don't have time. I like it, but I don't do it because I don't have time. I work out in the morning, but I get in there at 5:30 in the morning, so I'm in the office. So I think you have to lead by example first, especially at this critical stage, because it's important. And they got to trust what you're telling them, that, and you're going to be in there with them, and you're not asking them to do something you won't do. And that's what I think resonates with from the development, from everything that I touch. I'm talking to these guys every day because I'm in here, and they got to see, as what we would say as the leader, right? I mean, you have to lead. And if you want to know if you're a leader, look behind you. If there ain't nobody there, you're not leading anybody, right? So I got to lead these guys, and they got to know I'm in there with them, and we're in this. And same with shareholders. Shareholders call me, I call them back. We got over 7,000-8,000 shareholders. I'll call them. I'll call them all. Because they need to hear from me. If they got a question, I'm going to answer it. And they can trust that, hey, timing and things don't work out what you think or whatever else, but they know that you're figuring it out because you're in there working. And that's what they trust. And that's what I want them to know.
Earlier, you were mentioning how you are just the very, very beginning of this entire industry. You have a long trajectory before you. It's just because there's so much potential out there. As you hire for your company, what do you look for within the leaders that you hire? Because I imagine every person you hire now, you think about the potential over not just the coming season of like a few quarters, but over at least minimum few years.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I want the guy to work. I've had guys in the past that they I'd call them, hey, you're going to get on this call. And, this stuff that's annoying, that's, just professional and responsible. I don't really, a person that's willing to work can learn anything. And that's one thing you can't tell by a resume. How hard are they going to work? I'll take that over anything because I'll teach him what he needs to know. I know transportation and I know systems and I know the supply chain. And I got 2,000 probably things that we're going to add. I've already added to Jira that's going to be coming in bells and whistles, because we're going to be adding, the car's going to be, it's Model T, it's going to be a Lamborghini when it ends up in the next 3 years, right? But you got to get on the car and you got to get it on the road and get it moving. And so, we'll be hiring people that, want to work, because that's the number one thing that you need out of people. If they're willing to work, then they'll put the time in to learn, and then they'll become an asset. My son didn't know anything about blockchain really when he graduated college. Now he knows a ton because he's been in here working. And,
how do you tell someone's work ethic from an interview?
Certain questions I ask and how they ask that, and then it kind of just you figure it out. You can tell. You can tell. Based on questions you ask, a priority, and if this happened, how would you, whatever. And it's not that the company, everybody gets a break, and everybody, I like to have a good time too. It's not like I'm stiff, but there's a time and a place. And the most important time is LaneAxis and what we're doing, and the future of what we're growing, and an opportunity. There's a lot of people knocking on this door, this space to fix this problem, and the opportunity that's in front of us. And so, that's in the forefront, because I think we're the leader at this point, but doesn't mean we're going to win. So you have to, you got to stay thirsty, my friend. That's the old saying, but it's true, because the minute that you relax, that's when you catch an L.
What does it take for you to feel satisfied at the end of a workday?
I got to know that there isn't anything that I should have done today that I left to say I'm going to do tomorrow. I just, I keep my inbox clean. I don't avoid calling somebody. I don't avoid sending an email. I don't, there might be a strategy to send it tomorrow. That's different, but, because, the person pissed you off and you need to think about it, right? And make sure you don't say something you shouldn't have said, so you sleep on it. And that's always a good thing to do. That's not putting it off. That's a wise thing that I've learned over the years. Before, I just would have sent it, so you're a little bit wiser as you get older. But at the end of the day, when I get home, I want to know that I did everything that I was supposed to do today, and I'm not putting anything off for tomorrow, because there ain't no tomorrow. We get everything done we can get done today. That's it.
On top of learning when to speak and when to be patient, what are some other nuggets of wisdom you've accumulated in the past few years?
It's challenging working with certain guys. You have to understand that people aren't going to always do what they say they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's learning to let that go and move on. And I've had a couple partners, and I've had guys, and I don't wish them any bad, I really don't. I wish them the best. It's just, you got to move on, and you got to focus on yourself. So I choose to focus on myself, and I'm not perfect. So, and I know my faults, and, but I will put an honest day of work in, and I keep the grind. And so I think the number one wisdom would be just to, focus on yourself and keep everything positive in your life that you can. And then if something does happen, don't wish them no bad, don't do no bad karma, and don't do anything to try to hurt them. Just move on and just let the process play out. And in the end, you win, because what you're constantly putting out is good karma, right? Because regardless of what happens to you, every day you're working hard, and you're moving your agenda forward, and you're moving your company forward. And, I think, and I lived that because, we had a lot of tough times 3 years ago, and, we just kept grinding positive and controlling what we're doing. And now, we're at this point, and there's a lot of good things in the next 3 years that could really, really happen to LaneAxis shareholders, and will.
Can you elaborate on if there was something particular that happened 3 years ago that made?
No, it's not. Look, man, it's things happen in life. It's nothing against a particular instance or person. Things happen in life, right? You didn't get along, they didn't get along, or whatever.
Yeah.
You go to different ways. I'm just saying that's somebody that's listening to that. Everybody's going to have that in their life in some form of fashion, whether it's business or personal or whatever else. People are going to let you down, or they're not going to do, and they might say it's your fault. It don't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter. Move on, and keep it positive. What I'm saying is, don't spew the venom, and don't try to get back. And I have an excuse, and I have a reason. I have just cause. Let it go. Focus on yourself and be positive for yourself, and circle yourself around, and try not to make decisions again that you get entangled with things that you aren't aligned with, right? That's really my message. Stay positive. Show love, man. I mean, because life's too short anyway. There's too much garbage out there, drama, and everything. That's why I don't have social media.
It's the reason I try to minimize my time on Twitter.
You won't find me on there. The company's got a Twitter and all that stuff, but I'm not. I personally, I don't do any Facebook, nothing.
That's the way I like to keep it too.
Yeah.
More time as well.
Yeah. I surround myself with positive people that it's good vibes. And there's a song and they're saying by that, but it's true, man. And people, for some reason, they like negative. I don't. And I'm not going to spew it. And if somebody says, hey, man, I heard you say, well, they're lying, because I don't do that. I'm not going to go talk bad about somebody.
Okay. So one of the reasons I started this podcast is to help soon-to-be founders and early-stage founders find their, trajectory in life based on hearing the narratives and stories of other entrepreneurs. Do you have any advice that you give to that audience on top of what you already shared?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you feel it and you want to do it.
Okay.
And then guys that have taken time like myself or whatever else that connect personally with them, because I know that if somebody reached out to me, I'd help them in the form of, hey, what are you going through? And I may not even know what kind of business. It don't matter, because businesses are all the same. It's people you're dealing with. And so your situations are probably going to be pretty much the same in the solution. I'm going to tell you how to handle it. May not be something you want to hear, but it's going to be the truth. And so, for those young people that want to get, do it, because you'll find that you probably are doing it because you want money, or this is what it's going to, and you'll find as you evolve and you mature, I don't do this because of money. I do this because I believe in it, and it's a passion. And when LaneAxis succeeds, we're going to help hundreds of thousands of drivers improve their lives. And that's what drives me. The monetary thing's going to come up, obviously, because I'm a founder, and so is every other entrepreneur that founds it. Right? They're going to be founders, so they're going to benefit. But if your benefit is your main driver, you won't make it. You got to believe and passionately and behind something else that's going to make a difference. And once you gravitate to that, you wrap your mind around that, and that becomes your core, then you'll make it. Then you just have to. You'll have days you don't feel like getting up. Get up. Force yourself, because you're the only one that can discipline yourself. And if you learn that, it's discipline of the every day, just knocking the things off you're supposed to be doing. And if you do that, you'll succeed.
You seem like a very disciplined person. Is that something you always had as a part of you, or something you developed over your career?
No, I've always been that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
As a father, do you have any particular parenting tips in terms of helping raise disciplined children?
Well, both of my kids, my two oldest kids, they work for me, and I expect a lot out of them, but they're used to that. And they know that when I'm asking them, I only want the best for them. Right. And so let your kids be themselves would be my suggestion. And, you have an idea what you want them to be, let that go.
Okay.
Let them be who they are, and whatever that is, and support it and love them. And then they'll probably end up gravitating what you really want them to do because that's how they're built.
Well, this has been a really informative hour full of a lot of principles I look forward to carrying forward into my future. The last question I just want to leave the audience with is, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if they'd like to do so?
Yeah, so my email is rick@laneaxis.com, LANEAXIS.com, and my phone number is 858-413-6007.
I think you are the first person to share a phone number on this podcast, but I look forward to seeing what can come. Okay, well, thanks again for your time, Rick. It's been a great hour.
Appreciate it.